Edith Adamson is a conscientious objector.
Many people think it's all right to kill strangers or foreigners in a war. We believe it's wrong to kill, period.
Adamson doesn't want her tax money buying guns and bombs, nor does Rowena Hurst.
I don't believe in wars because I don't believe in violence in any form. I have 2 children. I don't want to, I think the future's pretty grim for them.
Hurst is an Ottawa woman. Adamson, who lives in BC, is traveling across Canada telling her story. Adamson says the federal government spends about 12% of her taxes on military training and equipment. That goes against her conscience, so she's withholding 12% of her income tax payments until the government promises to spend it on something other than weapons.
Well, we'd use it to establish jobs in the civilian sector, which are badly needed to cure the problems of unemployment today. We would use it to try and change people's attitudes to from an acceptance of war as a method of solving international conflicts to a search for peaceful solutions.
Adamson and Hurst decided on redirecting their taxes away from the military when the Charter of Rights came into effect, guaranteeing freedom of conscience. So far, about 200 Canadians have joined them, saying it's a matter of conscience. They've sent in their tax returns, but they've withheld 12% of what they owe. They've put their 12% into a common trust account they're calling the Peace Tax Fund. The total's now nearly $90,000. If the government will promise not to spend the money for military purposes, the group will hand it over immediately. Their position is supported by the Quaker Church and by the United Church of Canada. Federal NDP member Jim Manley supports them too. He wants some of the money put towards research for peace.
Canada's way to security is not by limping along behind the United States. Our security can only be found through world peace. A peace research fund, such as I and other people have proposed, would be one small step in that direction, and I urge the House to take it.
But the government says it won't tolerate taxpayers holding back part of their taxes.
If they refuse to pay and they have the ability to pay in terms of full-time employment, we could garnish their wages, or if they have other assets, such as bank accounts, we could place a demand for payment from those third parties.
The government says the armed forces don't just fight in wars. They provide other services, such as search and rescue. They help in case of natural disasters and accidents.
That's fine. We do need a certain amount of people to help with natural disasters if they do occur, but I don't really see that we have to have an army to do that.
The government says it's up to the elected members of the House of Commons to decide where tax money is spent. The government says the armed forces provide security.
Those people don't seem to realize that the type of war changed when the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. The war today, and nuclear war particularly, is not a matter of armies fighting armies hand to hand or even trench to trench. It would be a case of mass extermination.
What about the guarantee of freedom of conscience in the Charter of Rights?
Well, I think that's sort of a non-issue for Revenue Canada. Our job is to administer the Income Tax Act, not pass judgments about how the government spends their money.
Well, we see a conflict between the Income Tax Act and the Constitution, and we think that the legislators were remiss in not correcting this. The compulsory nature of the Income Tax Act is contrary to the freedoms that are guaranteed in the Constitution.
So unless the government changes its policy, Revenue Canada will garnish the wages and seize the bank accounts of anyone who holds back part of their taxes. Revenue Canada says it won't touch the Peace Tax Fund, though.
Indeed not. That's a separate issue, I think.
What will Rowena Hurst do if she's forced to pay?
I will pay the government under objection, but I will keep my money with the Peace Tax Fund and let them use it towards legal costs to fight the government on this issue.
Well, some people call us naive or unrealistic. We think the people who think they could survive a nuclear war or who think they can continue a buildup of arms without such a war occurring, we think they're unrealistic.
Adamson says the 200 people who withheld part of their taxes in '83 was triple the number the year before. She's hoping her cross-country trip this year will triple that number again. I'm Chris Brown for Newsday.